Hey there berries, welcome to my 11.21 support tier list. I apologize for not making one last time. I didn't really feel like there were enough changes going into the patch in order to actually do a whole new tier list. But we're back. There's not too long until the end of the season now, so hopefully these next couple of tier lists can maybe push you into like the silver or the gold that you've been aiming for. At the end of the season. I think it's gold that you need to get those end of season skins, by the way, so that's usually a good baseline to what kind of to aim for. So today it is going to be 11.21 and there aren't honestly that many changes to supports, but I have changed and adjusted champions based on the meta shifts that have been happening, particularly because of worlds going on. There's going to be a shift in champion play rate because, you know, people want to copy what the pros are doing at Worlds, whether or not that's a good thing. We'll talk about it, but we'll just go through the patch very quickly. There isn't actually many support changes here. There are a few changes that will affect supports in some cases, but overall support targeted changes are kind of non-existent again in like the third patch running. Great, good job, right? So in terms of the champion buffs, we got a Timo buff, so his Q cooldown's been reduced, and they have increased the blind duration, and the missile speed is faster. Now, this is quite an interesting one for top lane in particular. Timo is going to be quite strong up there. Timo's support was played occasionally, randomly by some content creators. It's definitely got a significant buff for sure. I expect Timo to actually be banned a lot in high ELO at least, until then that will start to trickle down, I think, into the lower ELOs. I think Timo is actually potentially quite strong. Playing Timo support is quite dangerous though, as he is easily poked out of lane still. You would have to pick Timo support if you really wanted to in someone's short range, maybe like a Lucian, maybe a Misfortune, just generally that someone doesn't do too many casts, someone who relies on auto hitting a lot and shorter range, maybe like a Xayah as well. You could maybe get away with that. It's going to be goofy, it's going to be very gimmicky still in terms of that support role, but in top lane it's going to be really strong. But yeah, I actually did move up a little bit in my tier list, which I'll show you in a minute. Jinx does get a buff, and so does Xayah, so those enchanters that are going to generally buff them up are they're going to benefit a little bit more from that. So we're going to see some more Xayahs and Jinxes maybe instead of Q. There was a Lux buff too, but it's nothing too super duper crazy. But let's talk about them because there's quite a few things here. So her auto attack speed has gone up, and when you're firing out your auto attack, the passive, so when you land a spell on an enemy, it leaves that little glowy thing. If you auto hit it, it detonates. There's a bit more grace period now. When like your auto attack is flying through the air, it will make sure that it will detonate on that person. Also works the same with the ulti. I'm not sure how exactly that's going to work, but it works with the same with the ulti. Her E damage is going up by 10. Her ult cooldown is getting buffed massively from the level 1, so 80 seconds to 60 is actually pretty huge. Now this puts Lux in quite an interesting situation. I'll show you my tier list, but I mean she's already quite high in terms of that AP kind of support, but I think this nudges her up on par with stuff like Xayah that we've talked about, and higher than Brand. So I think she's now like joint top EP with Xayah. I'll show you like how that indicates that on the tier list still. But yeah, I think Lux is this is the biggest one really for this patch, is Lux buff. If you like playing Lux, like this is the patch to play her and get the ELO that you need to climb up. In terms of other system changes, Conqueror has been nerfed, so in terms of bot lane, only really Ezreal kind of picked up Conqueror, maybe Draven as well, but I think he mainly took Halo Blades. So Conqueror is getting nerfed on Ezreal a little bit. Guardian is getting nerfed, but honestly, like, I don't know, I would never have taken Guardian anyway. I was never really a fan of it. But Guardian is being nerfed, so taking Guardian maybe against a hard engage if you're playing something like Nami isn't really worth it anymore. But I personally never did that anyway. I always just did summon Aerie. Other things here, it's just some bunch of random changes that don't really affect us. Quite basically, a lot of this patch is to do top lane, and there's a couple of the nerfs there. So Misfortune's getting nerfed, Action's getting nerfed, which you probably maybe saw a little bit. But yeah, nothing too crazy. Not a huge patch, honestly. I think the next couple of patches are also going to be like this. Like 1 or 2 champions might be getting buffed a bit, but overall, nothing too crazy in terms of the support role apart from that Lux change. Let's have a look at the tier list. So this tier list is for people that are plat minus. So if you're a diamond plus, then you probably shouldn't need a tier list anyway. You should already know what to play. But you can kind of use the top champions here at the end of this tier list to help you indicate, what you want to play in the super high elo. I won't go through too much here in terms of tier 5. Behind me is a Rumble, a Set, and a Nunu, in case you're wondering what's behind my head. But yeah, everything in tier 5 don't play gimmicky stuff like Misfortune or the Ashe support. Honestly, it's just not worth it. Going into tier 4, Timo actually, as I just mentioned, did get put up from tier 5 to tier 4. Wow, good job, Timo. You made it out of do not play and now into you are hindering your ELO. I think most people aren't going to be able to use Timo properly, but if you do actually manage to get ahead in lane, it's going to be kind of fun. It will be fun. You can mess around a little bit, put mushrooms around is always pretty fun. But overall, top lane is still where he's meant to be. Actually, if they had actually increased the range on his Q, then I think he would have been very good as support. Like just gonna throw that out there. If they buffed Timo's Q range, then Timo's support would actually be a 100% a legitimate thing. Other tier 4 champions, I did move down Swain and Pike. I know there's a few people that like Swain and gonna get absolutely triggered by me putting him down to tier 4. He's just not worth playing. I've indicated that as well with some of the other APs. The playing AP damage support champions compared to even a few months ago is just not really that worth it anymore unless you absolutely desperately need AP. And in that case, stuff like Swain should still be irrelevant anyway, because you're going to need the pure DPS of the Liandry's kind of champions, like from the Brand or the Zyra, or like the raw damage from like a Lux laser going onto a squishy target. Swain does okay damage very early on, but like later on into the game, unless you're like getting super fed, he's just kind of just there. Yeah, I don't think anyone should really be playing him. But yeah, feel free to flame me in the comment section down below. Pike, I did move down from tier 3 to tier 4. I think that was a long time coming. I should have probably done that a while ago. Pike's carry potential has gone down a lot over the season. Rarely see him played, and yeah, just overall doesn't really be like fitting in the overall meta at the moment, so that's why he's been pushed down a bit. Going up into tier 3, we've kind of we've thinned out the champions out a little bit. So Karma also gone down to from tier 2 to tier 3. So has Brand. So has Seraphine. I think that is it. So a lot of the motions coming into this tier list. Karma isn't really showing up as much as I thought she would in terms of laning power. I think she's still annoying to lane against, but the other enchanters are getting more benefit because they can kind of keep up with Karma in the laning phase. Plus, they're much better in the mid game onwards. Brand, once again, like I mentioned, he is a viable pick if you really need AP damage, but otherwise I just wouldn't bother really. Janna's a really good option against Disengage, but honestly that's the only case that you should be playing her. So if you're playing against like a Leona in particular, or a Rel, something like that, and Alistair, play Janna, really strong still. Otherwise just don't bother. Seraphine got demoted just because it's just like the other enchanters just do their job better than her in terms of like enchanting. Seraphine still has a really nice ulti, but I think pinning everything on just one button on a champion, particularly on how messy the low ELOs can be, I honestly feel like Seraphine, she's still an okay pick if you really must play her, but I think the other enchanters are just better, honestly. Moving up into tier 2, which you probably already got a sneak peek through because of it scrolled up slightly earlier, but not too surprising here in terms of tier 2. You got Yuumi. Yuumi would be tier 1, maybe even the best champion if you are like Diamond 1 plus. but you really need to have a stable AD carry in order to like launch off. But overall, she's still a really annoying champion to play against. You can do either the Moonstone build or the Ludens build, depending on how I don't know how sick of your carries you are in your game. If you just want to pump out the DPS, just go Ludens. If you want to do more sustain, which is still really good, really good, the Moonstone, just go that option. Generally, if you're doing well in lane, go Ludens. If you're doing not so great or okay, or if you're just not sure, just do Moonstone. It's a really safe option. Sorry to get demoted from tier 2, from tier 1 to tier 2. Mainly because we've also mentioned earlier the AP damage isn't coming through as much as I'd like to, and she kind of needs too much gold in order to pop off compared to the other enchanters. So that then puts Lux in a similar situation. I think Lux is extremely good. I think right now if you want consistent damage, then Zyra is the main one. So if they have a couple of tanks, you can go like Leandries. If you want the raw damage, if they're full of squishy teams and you need AP, then Lux is the main primary option there. Also works super well with a Caitlyn. There's Caitlyn Lux binding into Caitlyn Trap also does pretty well. Blitzcrank in those lower elos, you know, in the plat minus, he does really well. But generally, if you are playing Blitzcrank in the high elos, you're going to struggle more often. So Senna's really good if you are an AD carry main and you are coming over to League to play support because it's the same game. But yeah, if you have that AD carry experience, then yeah, playing Senna is a really good option at the moment. Still, it gets you into that support role. She can be pretty strong too. And once again, like if your team is kind of like AP heavy, even if you have like a Ziggs AP carry, Karthus AP carry, something like that in the bot lane, playing Senna can really supplement that quite nicely because it means you still have a marksman on your team. Lulu tier 2, she does get better the higher elo you are. I think if you're like in silver, she probably goes into tier 3. Once you start getting to gold, Lulu starts becoming a bit more relevant. And you only really want to play that with like the Vayne, the Cogmore, the Twitch. I think that is everyone. Like those are the main ones. Aphelios as well. Aphelios in Worlds with the Lulu has been doing pretty well. But honestly, if I saw an Aphelios in bronze or silver, I would like, yeah, dodge. Yeah, be turning around. You need too much IQ for that one. But yeah, like Lulu pairs up with some really nice hyper carries, but those are the hardest ones to play. So in kind of like, you know, particularly silver minus, you're not going to find those AD carries that are going to utilize your abilities as much. But once you start hitting gold and plat, Lulu starts becoming a much better pick. She can do quite well against something like Yuumi in the laning phase, or against like the Nami, which we haven't even talked about yet. Hint hint, wink wink. Her shield can fully block one of those parts of damage. Sometimes even the shield is left over still. And she can also generate gold really nicely because her spell thieves not only generates gold on the auto attack, but also from the picks. So she can actually like get out gold. She can out gold trade in the laning phase too. It's just that you are relying on your AD carry to actually be able to use those abilities. Otherwise it just falls flat. Going to tier 1, we've already spoiled one of those champions for you, but we are here into tier 1. So Leona, Nautilus, Soraka, Nami, and Sona. So not too surprising if you've been watching my videos on YouTube. A lot of enchanted gameplay lately, just because that is like really the meta at the moment. Tanks have been nerfed over time. They don't really have the greatest mythic. Hopefully next season they'll get a better mythic to run with, to be more aggressive with. But yeah, Sona has been doing particularly well, so much so that she's tier 1. You get a lot of power, honestly, for not having to do a whole lot, or as long as you just position properly, you're fine. Nami and Soraka, very aggressive in the lane. Don't do electrocute Nami, just for the love of all fish in the ocean. Just do not do electrocute. Not only are fish weak to that, but also so are your Lucians. They won't proc it off reliably. Like the only instance maybe is if you're duo with a Lucian, but honestly just stick with Summon Airy. Do not do anything else. It's not worth the pain. Whew. Okay, right, got that one out. Alright, so Soraka is really good as well, very similar to Nami in terms of that she can harass and get healing back. Silence is also super good against some of those channeled abilities like Katarina. Really, really good. And you know, you got your two best engagers. If you're playing against any enchanter, like Nautilus is the strongest champion against enchanters just because he can crowd control them 3 times effectively in a fight from his passive, his Q, and his ultimate. I mean, you can even slow them down as well with his E, so it's kind of like 3.5 crowd control. So on one target, he can really pin them down. And if he's playing with a reset AD carry, like a Tristana or even like a Draven who can like get nice passive stacks off, it becomes like super good option to play into those squishy enchanters and to deal with stuff like particularly, you know, the Soraka, the Nami, and the Sona. Leona is an interesting one. She struggles at the start against enchanters because she can get poked down, but once Leona starts hitting 6, then she can hard engage onto some of these enchanters and make a play. Now, once again, you are going to have AD carry reliance in terms of following up. If you ult in and you commit everything and your AD carry is still busy, you know, like watching Netflix on his second monitor, and then only going to realize is, oh yeah, my support's just gone in. Yeah, you're gonna have a hard time because you need to overlap that stuff quite nicely. What I will say though is Leona is better than Nautilus in the overall team fights, mainly because her engage is snap and instant, and her overall like hard crowd control in terms of the stun being better than a root on targets, and she can do that multiple times in a fight. It's got such a short cooldown that ends up being a bit more relevant than the Nautilus. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please subscribe if you enjoy the support content that I do, and including these tier lists. I'll try and make sure we do another one for 2 weeks time as well. So do subscribe, and also feel free to check out the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Bizzleberry, for more support content. We're currently doing some master gameplay on EU West, and we're climbing up on NA. I know, right? NA. So yeah. Feel free to come over and say hi. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. If you're interested in Smite, then I have a Bizzleberry Smite channel. If you're interested in me playing other games like Age of Empires that I will be playing next week when that comes out, or any other video games, feel free to check out the Bizzleberry 2 channel. I'll leave all of the links in the dibbly-doo underneath. Feel free to join Discord and stuff. You know, there's loads of links down there. Have fun with that. Click all of the links. Apart from that, I'll see you in 2 weeks for another tier list. I'll see you tomorrow for some more support gameplay videos. All the best, stay very awesome, and yeah, make sure you subscribe. Yeah.